And welcome to the latest edition of The Panel, where we discuss what's hot, what's not, and all the latest trends in the collectible marketplace. Here are our experts this week. Jesse Craig, the Director of Business Development, PWCC Marketplace, the $4 million man. We'll get into that in a little bit. And Nick Sapero, independent consultant. Three big topics on this show. Let's get to number one. The NBA draft. Cade Cunningham, first Piston to be selected number one overall since Bob Lanier in 1970. They got that one right. He ended up in the Hall of Fame. We'll see where Cade goes from here. Jalen Green, Evan Mobley, Scotty Barnes, Jalen Suggs. That finishes out the top five. In the marketplace, though, Jesse, let's start with you. Can you predict value at this point this early?
Well, everybody likes to think that they're a scout. So, you have people that will gamble pretty heavy on a specific player if they believe in him. You definitely can, see potential. I think the big value in our market right now, because everybody's going to pour their dollars into these high-end picks. It's going to happen. Cunningham's cards that come out, they're going to do big numbers just because of the potential that he has to be the next, Luka or whoever, right? But when you look at a little bit deeper in the draft, you find a guy like, Kobe went 13th overall, you find a guy like Giannis, these kind of guys. That's where you can hit the home runs, finding someone that maybe is in the best position to succeed on the team. So, thinking a little bit outside the box, thinking a little bit deeper, like a Mahomes. You want to go to football, right? Like Mahomes, he was drafted, I believe, 10th overall, but he got put in a great situation. So there's a lot of factors in play for value for these guys. But trust me, there's going to be a lot of prospecting. There's going to be a lot of people scooping all these things up, and the numbers should be interesting.
All right, Nick, how do you see the prospecting?
I like it. It's always fun watching. I always tell people you got to watch Summer League. Summer League's a good time for some of these young guys to really see what they're made of. You could find definitely some diamonds in the rough there that don't necessarily need a trade for a whole lot. They just need the opportunity on their team to really be a starter. You don't need to be a superstar to make money in this market. You don't need to find a superstar. You need to find a starter on your team. And some of those guys that came out of Summer League, I remember buying Kendrick Nunn cards because I'm a Heat guy, but I was watching him in summer league. Or Duncan Robinson is one of those examples where he just got a $90 million contract, off a guy that was undrafted. So finding those diamonds in the rough, I'd always say be patient. Be patient with buying. Especially on the top end of things, like buying a Cade Cunningham card. Yeah, is perfect, but I think you need to see him play in the game. You need to see how his progression is for the NBA, and you also kind of need to you need to prioritize based off product that comes out too. The early products just aren't for me investable because they're in a college uniform per se. They're not in a Pistons uniform. There's different factors that go into these products. So mass appeal products like Prism, National Treasures, which come out toward the later half of the year, are always more investable plays than earlier products.
Jesse, it feels like there's kind of two different kinds of investors that we're talking about. Like where I come from, I want to collect greatness, and you don't really know what that is until you actually see it and it actually happens. And then from an investment model, it's kind of too late, but that's where I want to be. And you all are also talking about a different kind of investor, which is the ones who will watch Summer League, who will watch maybe some AAA baseball, and will look at this and go, all right, I think I can predict the future of how these players are going to perform.
Yeah, totally. We have investors that really run the spectrum, right? You have guys that will invest in what we call blue chips, people that are retired or dead, or their legacy is already well cemented, like a Brady, even though he's still playing like he's the GOAT, right? Or LeBron or whoever it may be. So you also have people that want more risk, and maybe they're gamblers at heart, and they're the guys that fly to Vegas and drop $50K on black, because it's a big gamble. It's a big gamble when you bet on these guys like Cunningham, and you buy him early. You don't really know what you're going to get. You haven't seen it yet, and the problem we have now is that everyone's seen how much these cards can go up in value. Guys that bought Luka super early, and we're betting on him. Obviously, it paid off, but we went through a big market appreciation as well. So the value from buying Luka rookies at 10,000 to now they're 250,000. You're probably not going to see that with the Cade Cunningham card because there's going to be a lot more people already in our market that are betting on him. But then once you bet on him, you're invested in those games as well. So you don't have to bet on the game individually. You invest in a player, and then every time he hits the court, you get to be a part of the action.
Nick, let's just talk strategies for a moment then, because you've admitted here you will watch Summer League and you will invest in some of these players that look like they have what it takes to kind of take it to the next level. Are you someone who looks at this and goes, I'm going to go all in on somebody? Are you sprinkling around a lot of investments, kind of hedging who you think of the prospects may end up going that way?
I'm definitely more on the conservative end of things, so I will definitely sprinkle around my money. I don't like to go all in on one guy, even no matter how much I like him. It's just one of those things that, to me, I like to mediate my risk. And generally, you know, if I pick, let's say, 5 players, generally I'll hit on like 2 or 3, which is, you know, that's all you need. I mean, it's one of those things where, you know, you could spot the talent and you could spot what holes they fill in their teams, and that's the biggest thing from basketball. There's only 12 guys, 5 guys that take the court, you know, pretty much every night, and 5 guys that end up on the court at the end of the night in the fourth quarter. So, you know, to me, that's pretty much what I'm looking at.
Okay, let's get to topic number 2, the Major League Baseball trade deadline. Different dynamic, different bookmark of a calendar. These are established players that are moving to different teams with the object of adding to their legacies. In the case of people like Max Scherzer, Chris Bryant, or Anthony Rizzo, who have already won championships and now they're with new teams. Nick, how do you see the marketplace moving for these types of players that end up in these different situations?
I think it's all predicated on winning for baseball. I think if you go to a major market team, I think you definitely see a spike in you know, investors. If you go to the Dodgers, if you go you know, to all these major markets. But the biggest thing is if you become the hero for that team, you know, during the postseason, I think that's where the values really come into play. Some of these guys moving during this free agency period, they're stars, you know, but they've also peaked value-wise, so their values are kind of low on the lower end, like a Chris Bryant or a Rizzo. Their values were astronomical when they were kind of prospects, and now it's kind of more so, you know, more so on the lower end of the spectrum when it comes to, you know, their investability. So they really need to perform you know, heavily in the postseason to solidify their legacy and further add to their, you know, accolades.
Let me take the example, Jesse, of Max Scherzer, who, if baseball would normally go first ballot Hall of Famers, he would be, but he'll be in relatively soon with all the Cy Youngs, World Series championship, another opportunity here with the Dodgers. For someone like that, whose legacy is already cemented, he's only kind of adding to it with a new team. How does that affect his values moving forward?
Well, the problem with Max is he's a pitcher. I mean, pitchers just don't. Nick knows. Pitchers just don't carry much value in our market, which is interesting. It's almost like, you know, football quarterbacks kind of run the show. They're the exciting players, and they carry a lot of the value in our market. And the same thing with baseball. If you're not hitting and hitting for power, then from an investability standpoint, not a lot of people care. And it's just the way that the dollars flow in our industry. So pitchers predominantly don't bring a whole lot of value. I mean, Kershaw's stuff isn't worth a ton. It's gotten better, but still isn't worth a ton. The same with Scherzer. You could even look at Nolan Ryan. You know, Nolan Ryan's cards probably aren't as expensive as they should be. I mean, he's the GOAT in my opinion, you know. So Randy Johnson, I mean, the list goes on and on where these pitchers' cards are extremely undervalued in comparison to what they've done for the sport. So that's the problem that Max has. It has nothing to do with him as a player, but everything to do with our industry and where the dollars really flow.
All right, Nick, let's go back to the couple of players that we talked about. Chris Bryant, Rizzo, astronomical numbers there early with the Cubs, became champions, part of an end of a curse. Now they're with new teams. How do you see a marketplace ultimately changing? Let's just assume some success for both of them, whatever that exactly means. How does their marketplace change now?
They just need to continue that success, you know, pretty much very long term. Need to rake up potential, you know, postseason MVPs, and need to continue to solidify their legacy as pretty much a Hall of Famer. But I think their values kind of plateau. You know, toward the later half of your career, your values kind of plateau. I mean, you really have to do something drastic to really change. You may see short term success, But long term, the values are pretty much solidified for a lot of guys. That's why guys are shifting to prospecting, just because in a 1 or 2 year span, you see potential greatness that and you see the value changes, and that's pretty much what you want to see. I mean, when there's no value changes and it's kind of a flat line, no matter how good the player is, it's pretty difficult to invest in it.
All right, let's stop burying the lead and get to topic number 3 and get the giant smile on Jesse's face after the week that he's had, where a Pat Mahomes rookie 1-of-1 recently sold for a record $4.3 million, most ever for any football player's card in the history of collecting. There was a Mike Trout card as well. 1-of-1 rookie card just went over for $1 million as well. So, Jesse, take us behind the curtain. This has been quite a week for you.
Yeah, it's been fun. The sale was actually consummated a couple weeks ago, but we got our PR team involved, and it takes time to get that out. And then the timing with the National Sports Convention, we just decided to have it come out the first day of the show. So, it was a lot of fun. Being able to help my client, the buyer, find the card he was looking for. In this scenario, it actually wasn't in our vault, but I knew where the card was, so I contacted the owner of it. And we did a little bit of negotiating back and forth, and long story short, we got the deal done.
A little negotiating to $4.3 million. That's it sounds like that number gets things accomplished.
Yeah, it was a big number for the card, but my specific buyer, they really believe in Mahomes. They believe in rare assets, and this is if you're going to own a Mahomes card, there's no card better than this card. So he wanted to have the holy grail for Mahomes. And he has a lot of other Mahomes cards. He's pretty heavily invested in Mahomes, but he really believes in him and believes in his team. And so I use the comparison. If Tom Brady had a 1-of-1 rookie similar to this Mahomes card, it would probably be in the $15 to $20 million range. Huh. So that gives you an idea of it's a big number for the card, but Tom doesn't have the benefit of these low serial numbered 1-of-1s that started getting more produced in the mid 2010s or whatnot, which is the benefit that Pat has.
Nick, I assume you're all on board with the future for Mahomes, considering the things he's already accomplished at such a young age, winning a Super Bowl, losing in another one, being an MVP, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Is there anyone else out there? Are you looking at anybody else in kind of the same realm as Pat Mahomes and watching what their future looks like?
I mean, there's definitely other players. I think, Josh Allen's a player that, has had great success. I think definitely people are investing in him. I think the biggest thing with NFL is longevity and success. Mahomes had it so early, and as long as he stays healthy, that's the biggest thing. I mean, the Chiefs gave him a 10-year contract, worth, let's say, $400 million. So that's one of those things where you also need the backing of a team to really, solidify those values. And I think Mahomes' values were pretty much predicated not on his success of winning a Super Bowl or winning an MVP. It was predicated off his Chiefs contract. That's really what took these values to the next level. Anytime you see any of these big numbers thrown around, it gives people confidence in our market to invest, just like the team's investing in their assets. So that's what we look for. We look for the numbers that the team's throwing out there to kind of make a basis to investing.
Jesse, you want to talk about the Trout card for a moment, the one that just went over $1 million as well?
Yeah. DJ Ski bought that, and it's a great card. I mean, Trout has a couple different 1-of-1s. We saw his Superfractor 1-of-1 go for in the $3 million range months ago, but this card's a little bit different. Because of his minor league stature with baseball, he's got a couple years that are considered rookies, and this is a 2011. But it's a gorgeous card, and anytime you can scoop up a guy that's had the longevity that Trout has the contract Trout has. It's a solid investment. I think that if he can ever win in the playoffs, his cards are also going to go nuts. He's had all the success in the world just except for winning in the playoffs.
I see Jesse's fingers crossed that the weeks continue like they're currently continuing for him.
Trout needs a run like Jesse had. That's all Trout needs. All right, let's get to the final word. You had mentioned the National earlier. It was last week. Nick, let's start with you. What was your biggest takeaway from the event?
Oh, it was great. The foot traffic was amazing. I mean, it was more people than I've ever seen at a sports show ever. I mean, a Wednesday felt like a weekend at a normal show. I got to see Jesse. I got his autograph on multiple pieces. It was it was definitely cool to see Jesse and all the other all the other big names of the hobby. Everybody's there. Every card's there. It's crazy. I mean, the most inconspicuous guy walks up to you and he throws down $1 million card at your table, and you're like, it's a different kind of show and tell at the National. There's always stories, there's always transactions going on, and there's it's never ending. It didn't even end at the show. Even at the hotel. I mean, I was staying at the Lowe's, and that hotel there was 1,000 people every night in the lobby, just either making trades or it was nuts.
People were eager to get out. All right, Jesse, final word from you. What was your takeaway from the National last week?
Two takeaways. Really solidified the fact that our vault is a huge service at the show. We took in roughly $100 million in new assets to bring back to the vault. That was great. And then two is, as Nick mentions, the people. We talked to these guys for years because of COVID. We haven't met people in person, so being able to put faces with names, shake some hands, and spend some quality time with people in person was a big deal. And the buzz of the show was incredible. We had an absolute blast, and can't wait for the next one.
Yeah, it's nice to be out in society again. Hopefully it will last with the way things are going. All right. For Jesse and for Nick, I'm Bram Weinstein. That will do it for this edition of The Panel. We'll see you next week.